What's going on, YouTube? This is Fair Play here, back again to do another review of the series entitled The Passage. I am very late. I do realize that. I had forgotten all about the show, to be honest with you, with all the goings on from the week. But I'm here now, and because Spreaker only gives you 15 minutes for free at a time, I am going to have to probably break this up into two short recordings. Hopefully it won't go back. It won't go past about maybe 20-25 minutes, because this episode has a lot of information packed into it from Monday night. But yeah, so anyway, let me go ahead. The Passage, this episode was episode 3, and it's entitled That Never Should Have Happened to You. This particular episode, of course, is a continuation from last week, where Brad Wolchok, whatever his last name is, Walgott, him and little Amy had actually been caught by Clark Stevens, the guy, the federal agent who was after them. He'd actually caught up to him at Lacey's house. That's the black lady that used to be the trainer for Brad Walgott when he was in the Navy. She had been shot on episode 2 and assumed dead. Leela had managed to get away and hide from the guys, but they came and they got who they want, who was Amy and Brad. And so that's where last week's episode, actually not last week, but the week before last, episode 2, that's where it ended. Okay, so this episode actually started off showing you some flashbacks from episode 1 and 2. They picked up where Brad and Amy were actually, taken on to the facility. But let me get started. Just go from the beginning. I got a lot of notes here. I'm gonna try to get through them extremely quick, so y'all bear with me, all right? And again, if you haven't started watching this show, you're missing a good one. It's really good. This show is impressive. It's a lot of information in it, and the reviews are mostly good. You got some people that think it's moving too fast, and you got some people that thinks it's moving too slow. But I happen to enjoy the series. I really do. So anyway, from the beginning, this particular episode was primarily about the test subject, Shauna Babcock. She's one of the inmates, the young white girl that they have been showing in episode 1 and 2. She's about 19 or 20-ish, and this episode gives a lot of her backstory. That's one of the things I like about this show. It gives you flashbacks. It tells you the backstory to what's happening, and I like that. It fills in gaps for you. It starts off by showing back when she was actually brought to the intake facility, or her being transported from the prison that she was in, because again, she's on death row, and they're bringing her, 3 federal agents are transporting her from the prison to Project Noah's intake campground. Well, it was at night, and while the men were bringing her, one of them decides that he's going to try to rape the girl. So he tackles her to the ground, and she's struggling with him and fighting with him, trying to get him off of her. And while he's doing that, Clark Richards just so happens to come out of nowhere. He shoots a gun in the air, and he comes up and he breaks it up. So he saves her life at this point, all right? I'm sure he was looking for them, expecting them to be there, but he winds up saving her, and he takes the butt of his gun and he hits the dude in his head. He lets him know he didn't appreciate what he was trying to do to the test subject. So anyway, after the men, he runs them off. Him and Shauna Babcock actually get to know each other briefly. They have this friendly conversation, and she wants to know if everything's going to be all right, if what they're going to do to her hurts. She tells Clark where she came from, and which is from Las Vegas, and he tells her where he's from, which I forgot. I think he said he was from Philadelphia. But they start talking, just having a brief conversation or whatnot. And he winds up escorting her on to the Project Noah intake. Then the next scene you see is Amy and Brad. They go back and they show you the time that they spent on the van that they were on when Clark and his men actually caught up with them on the last episode. They show them being transported to the compound as well. And the conversation that they have is Brad is telling her don't be afraid, and they're making plans to actually escape the intake compound once they get there. And he tells her don't panic, everything's going to be all right. And he makes a promise, she makes a promise to him that she will not panic. All right, that's all he cares about. He just wants to make sure that little Amy is all right. So when they arrive at the compound, they wind up getting separated. And Brad turns around and looks at Amy, and he promises her that he is going to find her by any means necessary. And while after they're dropped off and everything, you see Dr. Sykes, the black lady, standing out looking. And so that's a little scene that they have. The next scene, they show the CDC docs and the doctors and the lab techs. They're actually in a room together, back into that main conference room. They are watching the video, which shows them when Babcock kills or bites that mean janitor that was picking at her. We find out his name is Simmons. All of the employees are in this room, including the weird little janitor, because they want to know what's happening. Because the janitor, the little guy, his name is Gray, he was actually in there with them when Babcock bit Simmons. So they see where the bad janitor had been taunting and picking at the little weird guy too. They saw how he kicked his badge into Babcock's cell, and when when little Gray went and got his badge out of the cell. So all of the doctors, including Dr. Sykes, they want to know why he did what he did. And of course, the little weird guy, whose name is Gray, he tells the doctors, he says, well, he's a dick. He said, basically, he's letting them know he's a butthole and he doesn't know how to treat people. And they want to know why Babcock didn't kill him, but she killed the other guy. And they remind him that Simmons, who was the mean janitor, was picking at her and taunting her the whole time. She didn't like him. She obviously didn't have anything against the little weird fella, but she had something against Simmons because of the way he was treating her and the way he was treating the little weird guy too. And the weird guy also said that he believes that she didn't mess with him because he was assigned to taking care of Fanning's cell. So she didn't mess with him. So there was this Oriental lab tech or doctor that was in there, and he doesn't think that Babcock has the ability to make decisions, but he's wrong. These people, even though they've been injected with this whatever this immunization is that they've been injected with, it has turned them into monsters. Yes, it has, but they still can think for themselves. They still can function on their own. The doctors just don't know it that yet. But this particular doctor thought that she did not have any type of decision-making abilities, but he is so wrong. So he recommends that they put her down, that they actually kill her. Now, while they were in this room together, Babcock starts talking to Clark mentally. She's literally manipulating him and communicating with him from her cell. She's talking to him and she's saying things to him. She's basically letting him know that she thought she could trust him, but he lied to her because she was caught up in that cell, and she sees now that he lied. She feels like he lied to her, and she lets him know mentally that she's going to get him later. He'll have to pay it. He's going to have to answer to her later. So at this point, Clark gets scared. Nobody else knows that she's talking to him, of course, in his mind. And he gets scared, and he tells everybody, yeah, let's euthanize her. Let's put her down. He told him, he said, just kill her. Just go ahead and kill her because he's scared. Okay. So Dr. Lear at this point mentions that there are nightmares that just about everybody has been having in the room. So people who have nightmares, they started raising their hand. Okay. So the next thing you see is that somebody comes in to get Dr. Sykes and tell her she needs to go see about Amy, because Amy is literally in there panicking and fighting the other doctors as they're trying to give her this injection. But Sykes comes in, she calms her down, and she starts to tell her how important she is, because she wants her to know that she's going to be the answer to this flu epidemic. She starts to basically talk to little Amy and calm her and tell her, you're a very important little girl. You're going to be a hero because you're going to help us cure the world of this disease, this flu. So little Amy begins to calm down, and Sykes also asks her, what is it that I can do to make you feel a lot better so that you can get this injection? And Amy, of course, tells her she wants the agent, and the agent she's talking about is Brad, all right? So Dr. Sykes agrees to go and get Brad, so she leaves the room. The next thing you see is Dr. Clark, not Dr. Clark, but the agent Clark. He tells another guard, they're in the cell with Babcock, and he tells him, he said, go ahead, I want you to gas her. And then I want you to move her to an isolation cell, and I want you to shine the lights on her, because they have figured out that lights, bright light, sunlight, actually destroys them just like a vampire. So he wants them to kill her. He definitely wants her dead at this point, okay? So then Dr. Lear and a tech, they're in a room, in a monitoring room, some unknown tech I'd never seen before. They're watching the video monitors, and they notice that Fanning and Babcock don't eat when they're fed. They're usually given a daily dose of blood, but a daily dose of blood. But for some reason at that moment, they are not eating their dose of blood. So Dr. Lear starts to realize that the reason that they're not eating is because they're talking to each other. They are communicating mentally with each other. So he catches on to that. Then you see that in the next scene that Dr. Fanning is encouraging, he's a monster now, but he's encouraging Babcock this whole time that they're communicating psychologically. They're in two different cells. He is encouraging Babcock to utilize her powers to accomplish the plans, basically, of a takeover or to get out of the intake facility. He's telling her to tell Clark all about her story because he knows that Clark has a soft spot for Babcock. Okay? So he decides, he said, look, we need you on our team and we need you to go ahead and tell Clark your backstory. So she starts to tell Clark her story in his mind. So this whole episode, she's showing him things. And let me go ahead and get her on out the way because her story is kind of broken up throughout the 43-minute episode. But to sum it up briefly, she came from Las Vegas. She lives with her mother. She is a kind of a wild child. She's about 18, 19 years old. She hangs out with two of her friends. They go to parties. They get drunk. They even steal from time to time because you're going to see that in this particular episode. Her and her friends are very close. She's trying to save money because she wants to be a makeup artist for movies and whatnot in Hollywood. She wants to move to Los Angeles. So she's saving up her money to go there. But that night, while she's at a Halloween party, I believe it is, a fight breaks out because one of her friends is attacked by some guy that's trying to talk to her. So a little fight breaks out, and while the fight breaks out, she steals some money from the register behind the bar area, and she winds up going to jail that night, and her mom has to go and pick her up from the jail. So again, she's kind of a little bit of a wild child, So her mom's boyfriend or husband or whatever, who she's been with for a long time, is living in the house with them. And he comes to her room that day that she's picked up from the jail cell. And you could tell that it's something gross about this dude. She doesn't even let him in her room. He almost tries to force himself into her room. But you can tell that he's just a horrible person. He's just a horrible person. He's real nasty. He's saying things to her that she doesn't like. So you get the picture that he's a cause of contention for her as well. So you find out that throughout this episode, she's talking to her mother, and her mother tells her that she doesn't believe that she's going to follow through on her plans to go to Las Vegas because she never follows through on anything, basically. Her mom tells her she's unstable and she needs to get herself together. And one night when she goes into the house, she realizes that her money that she's been saving has been stolen. So she's, of course, upset, and she runs through the house. She finds her mom and her stepdad in the kitchen, talking. They're cooking dinner, acting all lovey-dovey and stuff. And she asked the man what happens to her money. She told him she knows that he stole her money from her. So he has admitted it at this point. He said, I needed it for something. And they get into an argument. He leaves the room. Her and the mother are standing in the room together. And it's at this point that she confesses to her mother that her husband, his name is Danny, has been molesting her since she was 8 years old. So from the age of 8 to 16, she was being molested by this man. And she realizes while she's talking to her mother, because her mother keeps saying that this man is a good man because that's her man, she realizes that her mother knew this man was molesting her. And when she realizes it, she says, Mom, you knew this and you did nothing to stop it. So at this point, like some women, a lot of parents do to their abused children, the mother blames her for it and tells her, you could have stopped it if you wanted to because Danny is such a pussycat. So at this point, the girl gets mad. She grabs the butcher knife that her mom was using and she stabs her mother. And then she walks off into the room, the back room, and you get the understanding that she stabbed Danny too. So she killed two people. That's why she wound up on death row. Y'all, I'm about to end this particular recording, and I'm going to start part 2. Thank you. Talk to you in a minute.